It may be something you don't understand, but I'm telling you, God sees, and he saw already before it happened. He told him, you're going to suffer, you're going to be in this for 400 years. But at the end of 400 years, I like what he says. He said in Genesis chapter 15, verse 14, and also that nation whom they shall serve. In other words, in those that were holding you captive, will I judge. And afterward they shall come out with great substance. Oh, how true is God? You can read that at the end of that 400 years, after the children of Israel had cried out, after God had come in, done all the plagues, the death angel being the straw that breaks the camel's back, and he lets them out. He ushers them out. The Pharaoh says, get out of here. They didn't leave empty-handed as they walked in, but they were filled with goods. They were richer as they went out, as they were when they came in. Why? Because God said that you're going to have great substance. Now, in their case, it was material. It was monetary. But I tell you this morning, in our case, it may not be dollar for dollar. It may not be what we expect. But I'll tell you what, at the end of that trial, at the end of that tribulation, at the end of that adversity, you're going to come out greater. You're going to come out stronger. You're going to come out wiser. You're going to come out with understanding of things you've never had or known before. I could just imagine as God is speaking to Abram. He tells him, you're going to be the father of many great nations, kings and rulers are going to come out of you. And he's giving him all this good news. David says, how's it going to happen? Well, you see, you're going to have to endure some pain. You're going to live in places that you don't know about. You're going to serve taskmasters. You're going to be in captivity. You're going to be slaves. And not only that, but you're going to do it for 400 years. Now, does that sound like the Bahama cruise you want to take? I've never been on a cruise, but I'll tell you what, if there was a cruise advertisement that says, come enjoy your pain, endure the suffering, you can't relax, and you get minimum for meals. Now, that's a trip I want to take. No, I want to say, come and relax. Come and enjoy. Why? Because that's just the way we are. I hear God's telling him, okay, this is what's going to happen. You want to get to there? You want to be the father of many? You want to have people, rulers, kings come out of you? I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to endure some things that nobody else has. You're going to go through some things that's going to propel you, advance you into a place where they're going to be looking at you as the father of faith. They're going to go through some things that are not just going to help your wife, your son, just those immediately, but for time after are going to read in the book of a man that continued that went to a place that was sought by and led by God, but not without its problems, its adversities. I believe that's why God sometimes, I've never heard him call me a father of faith. And I believe that's why sometimes God doesn't give me all the details. Because if I would have to look and see what I'm going to go through, I may not want to go. But as I look back, hindsight 2020, I thank God for the things I've been through. I really do. I thank God. I know this sounds morbid, please, but I thank God for almost dying. I thank God for taking me through things that I would have never experienced if I knew I had to go through them, because I wouldn't have. I thank God for leading me in ways of troubles and ways, because I have found out that there's a God always there holding my hand, leading me, strengthening me, giving me, providing for me, helping me. I thank God. But I also thank God because he knows me. And sometimes he just has to let me walk by faith. And he knows you. And sometimes he just has to let you walk by faith. Because like I said, sometimes hearing from God isn't all that comfortable. Oh, salvation, eternity with the Lord, that's the end result. That's where I want to go. I'm hoping that's where you want to go. That's where we want to be together around the throne, worshiping Jesus. But if he told us what we had to go through to get to heaven, how much of us really would endure? But I'm thankful that he says that my grace is sufficient. That no matter what's bothering you, no matter what's attacking, no matter what's right there frustrating, no matter what's that there in your side, in your life, my grace is sufficient, and it's going to lead you all the way through. You know, it's amazing how adversity builds the stamina. I heard it once said that if you want to see someone, or if you want to see the fight of humanity, give them adversity. If you want to see someone make it through, let them struggle. A caterpillar who goes into its cocoon to come out a butterfly is not an easy job. But as it is encapsulated in that cocoon and it starts to break out and struggle to come out of its captivity, to come out of its surrounding, to come out of where it's been for however long, but it exits something far more precious and beautiful than what it entered in as. That's how we are. Tried gold, tried by fire, as pure, as transparent as we can be. You see, there's a couple of things that we got to understand, that in our adversities, God's not going to leave us. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. It's a very familiar portion of Scripture. We've heard of the robe of many colors and the one it belonged to Joseph. But in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, it says, "But as for me, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive." He was talking to his brothers. Rehearse the story just a little bit. He's talking of those when he was just a young boy, hated him, despised him, looked at him and said, "This is just the runt of the family. This is just little daddy's boy and mama's boy. And look at how much and how precious this little kid is. He gets a special robe." They were jealous. They were envious. They were mad. And as they saw him one day coming, Reuben, the eldest, says, or they all conspired and said, "Let's kill him." They were mad because he gave dreams that one day his brothers, those that were out there doing their thing, were going to bow to him. And they see him. They say, "Well, let's kill him. Let's see what comes of his dreams." As he gets closer, Reuben decides, "No, I've got to help out. I've got to save. I got to do something." And he comes up with an alternative plan. Let's throw him in the pit. Let's throw him in the pit. Let's not kill the lad. Let's throw him in the pit. And so they conspire, they agree, they put him in the pit. Reuben leaves for whatever reason. The Ishmaelites come. You know the story. He gets sold to a band of gypsies. He gets over there, and then he gets presented on the slave block. He gets sold to Potiphar. He goes into Potiphar's house. He goes and he starts to excel in Potiphar's house. The eye of Potiphar's wife gets a hold of him. She wants to be immoral with him. He declines. stands, he fights, he's just to God and to Potiphar. He gets thrown in jail for standing up, doing right, the adversity against the lies and everything. He gets thrown into jail. In that jail, he becomes again growing up. He becomes a great person, a great prisoner. I've never heard of a great prisoner. But this guy had what it took. He excelled right there in the prison. He was made the Lord of all the other prisoners. Then the day comes that the butler and the baker, they both get to get a visitation. They both get to go and have a hearing with the Potiphar. One gets to be put back in standing where he was. The other gets put to death. And in so doing, Joseph told them what the dreams were that they had dreamt, what their meaning was. But then he says, when all this is done, please don't forget me. Forgotten though. Left behind. I'm where I ought to be now. And forgot about the one who interpreted where I was going to go. Time comes, he has a dream, Potiphar, and he can't decipher, he can't interpret the dream. And then it clicks in his mind again. There was a man that told about my dream. He tells of the dream. They call Joseph. He interprets the dream, and from there on out, we all know the rest of the story. He excels, except on the throne was he as great or greater than the Most High there in the realm. And then we read right there that as the brothers are surrounding him because they have forgotten who he was, they've forgotten his face, they could no longer remember him. As he's standing before them, talking with them, he says, you guys meant it for evil, but oh God, see, he's meant this for good. Not just for me, but for the saving of many. That's you, bros. That's you guys who throw me in the pit. That's you guys that let me get sold to the gypsies. That's you guys that when you weren't around, I was put in prison. That's you guys that I was chased and lied about and humiliated. That's you guys who did all these things that tried to pull me down. But let me tell you something. Through all this adversary, through all these trials, through all these problems, God kept picking me up. Every time I was down in the pit, God picked me up. When I was in the gypsy caravan, God brought me out. When I was in Potiphar's house and his wife was chasing me, he brought me through. And when I was in the prison, God set me free. Let me tell you, what you guys did was nothing because my God was greater. You guys meant to hurt. You guys meant to destroy. But my God made it for good. He took what you wanted to do and he turned it around so that he could accomplish where he wanted to take me. And now look at you guys didn't even know, but you have bowed before me. It's just as the vision was, just as the dream I had. Why? Because even though I had to go through some things, God still accomplished and did what he said he would. It's in Job. Chapter 42, verse 10. And the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Again, we know the story. In the beginning of Job, it talks about how great he is, how wealthy he is. He's one of the greatest. He's the most high profile. He's the richest in the east quadrant, and he's over there. And he does all the right things. He does everything right. He does sacrifices for his kids. He does everything he's supposed to do as a dad, as a husband. He does everything he's supposed to do as a man and as a servant of God. And we see that in just in a moment, his whole world comes tumbling down. His cattle's lost. His substance is taken. stolen. His children die under the collapsing of the eldest house. And not even a moment's reprieve between them, as one is telling them of the atrocities of things that are happening. Another messenger comes. I've only have escaped to tell you of the bad things that's happened. I've only escaped to tell you of the worst of the worst. But when it was all said and done, Job said, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Why? I don't think he understood. I don't think he knew that in that last chapter of Job, in the last chapter of his life there, he's going to have twice as much. He's going to have more daughters, more sons, more cattle, more camel. He's going to have more of everything that he had before. But no, in the instance, oh God, you brought me this far. You've taken away, but you'll give it back. I don't know how, I don't know when, but God, I'm going to trust you. You give and you take, and I bless your name. See, sometimes we just got to trust him. That some of the things, even though they're not bad, and some of the things, even though they're not atrocious, some of the things, they're not bringing us away. Some of the things that are taken sometimes are precious. But God, I believe, and the end result says, I've got more. You managed through the adversities. You managed through all the trials. You managed through all the problems. You get your best friends to come and they tell you how wrong you were. You get your wife to come and she tells you just curse God and die. You get all the things against you. But you hold on to your integrity. You hold on to your faith. You hold on to your hope. We see, read that last chapter, chapter 42 of Job. Verse 10, we read it, but it says, and the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. You see when he got that? When he prayed for his friends. He didn't get that all because he just went through the adversities. But Scripture says that when he prayed for his friends, that's why I need my brother. That's why you need your brothers, your sister. Because when you pray for them, you do nothing but bring the blessings of God upon you. Oh yeah, you're blessing them. Please don't misunderstand it. Your blessings go to them. God hears them. He touches them. But you know what? As an example here, Job prayed for his friends. Who were those friends? They were the ones that criticized him. They were the ones that came back and said, man, you messed up to be in a place like this. They're the ones that says, I don't know what you did. I don't want to be in your situation. No, he prayed for his friends. And God started opening up the windows of heaven and started pouring out a blessing that he could not contain. Shaken down, pressed down, overflowing. He gave him something he never could have gone by just being that good man in the beginning. But through all this, he learned that I will trust God in everything. I like verse 17. So Job died. That's not really the part I like. But he says, so Job died, being old. I like that. And full of days. You want to know how we are old and full of days? It's not by an Atkins diet. It's not by a carb-free menu. It's not by looking at the latest and newest renditions of the fads and the diets that are in the world. Now, I'm not saying we don't need to be healthy. We need to be healthy. What I'm saying, though, that if we want to have days, get old, have full days, we just trust God. We just continue in God. We don't worry about the world saying and what they're doing. I could talk to you right now about this nuclear escalation that's happening between China and with Russia and with the United States, the balloons. I've read all the things. I've kind of caught up in that a little bit. But I tell you what, that's not my purpose in life. What I want is I want to trust God. What may happen is going to happen, but it will only happen if God says, and it'll only happen when God is ready and when He's got a church that's going to go through it. You see, God will do it again. God did it. God did it. God did it. I want to close with this story. If we could have a musician. I want to close with this story. Actually, it's two stories. One biblical, one personal, and then a story I heard. So, actually three. Biblical story is, there was a widowed woman, Brother Mendon. I was laughing. I can't count. But there's a story in the Old Testament of a widowed woman who got provided for. We know the story. I'm not going to rehearse it. It's just that. Took care of her. What the prophet said to do, she did. And God just took care of all the rest. He did it. He did it. He did it. Day after day, there was still oil. Day after day, there was still flour, meal. Day after day, they would still go out and get twigs together and start a fire and make a cake. Day after day. He did it. He did it. He did it. There's a lot more to that story, but we'll save that for another day. It's back in 1990, the end of 92, beginning of 93, somewhere around there. It was a love-struck young man who asked a beautiful lady to marry him. They were going to live on love. You youngins, you that... I'm just going to say this without trying to quench it. Get a job. You can't live on love. But anyway, this young man was going to live on love. I'll get a job. I'll do whatever. But I'm going to live on love. Get married, get a job. A couple months later, lose the job. The love didn't dissipate, but the finances did. I still remember being in that third floor apartment. No food, no toiletries, nothing. I love animals, but I'm glad we didn't have a pet because we couldn't afford to feed it. Young, scared. Me and my wife got together, started praying. You know, we hear these fables, or we hear these things that we think are fables. We hear the Bible, how He supported, how He brought, how He was Jehovah Jireh. How is that? Well, you know, it was just... Well, I told my wife, write down everything we need. Everything. She asked me, she goes, are you going to go tell Pastor that we're hurting? I said, nope, too prideful. I don't want anybody to know. I'm a macho's man. No one's going to know we're hurting. But we'll pray. That was my first fault. Not relying on a brother. But we did. She wrote down everything on a sheet. And it wasn't but maybe a couple days. At the most. I don't remember exactly the time frame, but at the most. And we hear her knocking on the door. It was our assistant pastor, his wife, and their boys. And they came up, trucking those 3 stairs, those 3 levels of steps, with grocery bags full of stuff. I was in awe because we hadn't told anybody. I asked her, did you tell anybody? As if, come on, we prayed. We should have expected it, but I was mad because I thought she told somebody. She goes, no, I didn't tell anybody. Close the door. We thanked them, close the door. We start taking everything out like two hungry squirrels. And we start seeing everything on the list. Potatoes, eggs. They brought chorizo, the wrong kind, but the same, it was chorizo. It wasn't Peyton's, but it said chorizo on it. I remember this because it made such an impact. And she checked off everything on that list. And after everything was checked off, there was still stuff in the grocery bag. He did it. God did it. Growing up, I always heard of the $5,000 check that came in the mail that wasn't expected. I heard, Brother Mendenhall, of our forefathers, of those that have blazed the trail, how God will supply all their needs. I heard of Brother Bear, who one day was at a house and he was giving a Bible study. And then he stopped in the middle of the Bible study. And he started praying, just a simple prayer. He said, God, I'm hungry. I've been here for 3 days. And he wasn't being disrespectful. He goes, we've only been able to eat some cornmeal and beans. I would love a steak. Got done with the prayer. He added some things, a steak, potato, and some things. Got done with the prayer. Started back on the Bible study. And at lunch, or at supper, the door knocks, and there's a person there with grocery bags with steak, potatoes, everything he asked for. We hear of these things, but when's it going to happen? When's my turn? When do I get that? This one I'm not so sure of. I heard a Pentecostal preacher tell this story on his own accord. But he told the story again of a woman who had lost her husband, had no children, was out of all her finances. She opened the door and she started praying out loud as if God couldn't hear her. But she opened that door and she started praying out loud to the Lord. God, you see my pantries are empty. Would you please fill them? God, you see my pantries are empty. Would you please fill them? She closed the door. And the next day she heard the doorbell ring. She opens the door and she sees grocery bags of food. And all she said was, God did it. God did it. God did it. God, you filled my groceries, or you filled my pantry, God. Thank you. Just at that moment, the neighbor, who was an atheist, jumps out. He goes, God didn't do it. She was stunned because here's evidence. He goes, I heard you yesterday praying to this non-existent God. So I went to the grocery store and I cut this food for you. God didn't do it. I brought it to you. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. She raised her hand. She goes, God did it. God did it. God did it. He goes, woman, just aggravated. It's kind of like that woman that I was door knocking at. I went to door knock. I knocked on the door. She opened it up. I'm Buddhist. I don't want none. And shut the door. I wanted to go to the back door and say, hey, you know there's a mean Buddhist on the other side. You want to get out. But he's aggravated. He's mad. Because God didn't do this. He looks at it and he says, wait a minute. I paid for it. I've got the receipt. I used my credit card. I did everything. And she said, God did it. God did it. And he even used the devil to pay for it. You know, sometimes we don't know how it's going to happen. But we can be assured God will do it. God will do it. God will do it. Why don't we stand this morning? I don't know what your need is. I don't know what you have faced. I don't know the promises that you've had given to you. But if God said it, you've prayed it, God will do it. And He'll even use the basest of men to accomplish it. He'll do whatever it takes to make sure you can lift your hands and say, God did it. God did it. God did it. Even in all the struggles, even in all the fire, even in all the persecutions, God did it. God did it. God did it. Even in all the health issues, even in all the mental anxieties, even all the emotional ups and downs, God did it. God did it. God did it. Even in my financial hardships, even in everything I face, God did it. God did it. God did it. This morning, do you need God to do something? Would you like God to do something? I'll tell you, He's here right now. He's here right now. And there ain't nothing under the heavens that can stop Him from doing and working. What may have come may have been for evil, but God turns it around for the good. These altars are open. If you want God to do something, if you need God to do something, if you're looking, if you're in the middle of that adversity, if you're in the middle of that trial, if you're in the middle of that situation, oh, you can be assured God will do it. He calls those things that are dead, speaks to them as though they're already alive. He does it. He does it. Oh, is there anybody else that would like to just come and say, God, here I am. God, here I am. You see, He knows. He's already been there. We prayed. We're praying for each other. And God's just opening up the windows of heaven to do it. Mikey came up with that slogan. Nike's popular for that slogan, just do it. Well, God does just do it. He does it all the time. Can we reach to Him? Can we reach for Him? Can we allow Him to do that? He's here. He's advancing through sometimes our adversities, but He's doing it. He's doing it. Hallelujah.